Well, welcome everybody to the latest episode of Forever Bristol City podcast. It's not a great morning by any stretch of the imagination. The final score at Ellen Road last night, it finished Leeds United 4, City 0. They've been undefeated in 19 games up there. Burnley the last victors. So was it a free hit? Was it a game we expected anything? Not really. What disappointed me more than anything, though, was the performance in all areas of the pitch. We just weren't in it, and it came on the back of that defeat against Luton on Easter Monday as well. 7 goals conceded in the last 2 away games. I'm joined by Dave Tubby over in Spain, who's overcome the power cuts over there, and Tom Sutton, who you've been doing a breakfast club with some kids, haven't you, this morning, or something like that. Yeah. So, guys, as we normally do, you first, Dave. What were your thoughts at the final whistle?
Slightly humbling in remembering that is the dream that we're supposedly chasing, one that we were outclassed, out-footballed, and pretty much out any adjective you wish to add. The one positive from last night is that we learned, no matter what division we're in, which players will be going forward with us next season, because some were well short of the standard. However, the position is now clear. If we win it the weekend, we're probably in. Draw or lose, and it could well be a conversation of bottling it slightly, but we'll see what the future has to hold after yesterday.
Tom, what did you think?
It's the exact performance you wouldn't want going into the biggest game in 17 years, where you're outclassed in every aspect. I think it strikes to me when you can see 2 goals in 10 minutes of a drain of energy, a drain of concentration. That's just players getting tired mentally and physically, but you've been chasing the ball for so long. But it was the 4th goal that's the killer, because that's the goal difference advantage we had on Coventry wiped out now. So now we're level on points. So that makes any aspect of Preston, if it wasn't a not win, now a must win, because you can't rely on a draw in the Borough Cov game. Because if it goes that way, Cov jump us.
They jump us, of course. Yeah. So, yeah. And you said worst preparation, a bit like Tottenham losing 5-1 at Anfield at the weekend, when they've got a massive game, although I don't think Postecoglou will be there for much beyond the end of May, if he gets that far. Okay, Dave, we're rocked by injuries. There's no doubt about that. And there's a mixed view on this. No full bench again. I don't agree with that. I think you can put somebody on there. If we're low on defenders, what's the youngster that is it Jamie Knight-Labelle? Is he the one?
He's a crew.
He's a crew. Who's
Campbell Slowey?
Campbell Slowey. Just put him on the bench, to make up the numbers. What did you think when you saw the lineup? It was predictable, wasn't it?
The first question you'd have to ask yourself is, with a small squad, is it by accident or is it by intention? And I would argue it's by intention. And there were enough opportunities in January to refill in certain positions, which we didn't do. And it just so happens that we play a formation that has a massive ask on your wing backs, and that just so happens to be where our injuries are suffering the most. In terms of the lineup, at the beginning of Viner, when he first went into left centre back, I thought there was potential there, but it's been clear for a couple of weeks it doesn't work. And having Viner and Roberts together against an outstanding Leeds side, it was a recipe for disaster. And to answer your question, in terms of the bench, you asked me the same question a couple of weeks ago, and I said it doesn't matter because they're not going to play. However, yesterday, you're right. I don't see the point in it. And it's Manning, basically, the only thing I can come up with is he's not willing to give a token bench position to a player that's never going to get on. But I think it's missing an opportunity, and not to mention a Williams who clearly isn't fit enough to play. So you're missing golden chances to bring through your pathway into future seasons. And this pays into the formation yesterday and not playing Morrison. Why wasn't Morrison playing yesterday? Because he hasn't had the game time. We can argue it wasn't the game yesterday, but why is that? Because there's been opportune moments, and some of the issues that we're having, yes, you can argue that there's a little bit of misfortune with injuries, but equally some of it is from our own making, from not bringing on a few youth players and from also not refilling the squad when it was needed. And that will need some reflection no matter what happens on Saturday. And today's pod, I think it's really important that we separate it into two parts. First of all, talk about yesterday. And then second of all, talk about the season and building into the Preston game, because they are two different things.
Yeah, absolutely right. Tom, what did you think of the lineup? You know, it's sort of the team's picking itself. We're down to the bare bones. But are we playing square pegs in round holes in a couple of areas?
I think he's got the shape that works, and you know, there's a rotation element that he likes within that system with the way that players interact with each other. I think there's a familiarity now with that, and we've got results in that shape, so he's going to keep that all the way through now. I can't see him changing from that, because that would be a bit of a drastic change this late on. But I think if there was a belief in January, if we were going to get playoffs, I think we would have kept Atkinson. And I think we would have kept Naismith. I think.
Would those have solved the left wing back position?
They would have solved the centre back issue with Viner.
Yeah.
And then maybe you go, you know.
Who you play on the left wing?
He put on the left. You know, it lacks, unless you put Tanner over Tanner right wing back and McCrory left wing back, then you're not having to play Roberts. But then you're playing a left-footed player, a right-footed player on the left. Well, it should be Morrison, but he's done this short like term mindset this season with we're going to cut out the youth. We're just going to focus on. We've used the least amount of squad players out of any other team in the Championship. So he's not better than any youth this year. And I think, like Dave said, that there's been an issue with not bringing Morrison on in games, because now when you need him, when Roberts has been exposed time after time being too poor defensively, whether that's in terms of physical attributes at the back post, you know, they were really targeting Roberts with square balls across back posts yesterday. Even the first goal was across a left wing back position where you expect him Roberts to be. So teams are targeting that side. And because you've not betted in Morrison, you can't, you know, you're going into Preston game with an out of form Roberts, an unconfident Roberts, and an 18, 19-year-old that played 45 minutes of football all season as your options. And that's why Cam Pring's such a big miss.
Yeah. Is Cornick injured, by the way?
No.
So he's in the departure lounge, but he's not been.
I think he did have some issue, but I don't think he's exactly.
And what's the point of putting Joe Williams on the bench if he has got a quad, and you're saving him for Saturday?
I guess if you get two injuries,
you can do 15 minutes, but then you could wreck his chances because they're trying to bring him back. All right, let's get into the action. Strong start by the home team against 36,000 yellow scarf waving fans. I don't know why they give them yellow scarves when they play in white, but there we go. Pirro, first chance they had on 2 minutes, Pirro put in Bogle, and if he'd have got a touch on it, it would have gone in, but I think it would have been offside. We're going to talk about Max in a minute. Max O'Leary, though, did his first save from Solomon, and Pirro was causing all sorts of problems because he set up Aronson for Max to save with his feet. Dave, the first goal, we sort of weathered the storm. I mean, 21 minutes, I think Stoke were 2-0 down by that time. It was a crappy goal to defend, wasn't it? And concede, I should say.
Before we get to the goal, I have a question for you, Tom. What did you think towards the way that we set up and the game plan in that first 20 minutes? Why is it that we've done the same kind of thing in passivity against both Burnley and Leeds? What do you think the reasons are in terms of how we've set up and how we've approached the game?
I think there's an element of let's contain them, let's hold out to half time. You want to grow into the game. You don't want to be in a Stoke position where you come on too fast, too early, and then you flash your 2-0 down. But Leeds are the best team I've seen at this level ever at stifling an opposition and penning an opposition back. It's like what we've done with Sunderland and Hull when they've gone down to 10. Leeds did that against us with 11 for the whole 90 minutes, and you couldn't get out. And it was like they pushed players so high. They pushed Bogle and Firpo right up against your back five. Then they've got Pirro and Notto and Solomon as well pushing onto your centre-backs that you just can't get out. It goes to the centre-backs and they're on you. Yesterday, there was times in the game where you're trying to grow some sort of control and it just was not working because they just have so much mobility in Tanaka that Tanaka is their knight, a more technical knight. Right. And he just was fantastic.
What nationality is Tanaka?
He's Japanese.
And how much did they pay for him?
Oh, not much. Not much. He was decent because they sold Kamara and then bought Tanaka in. Kamara was a good player as well. But in terms of the way we played, I think that we were like, I didn't think we expected them to be as good as they were. I thought that it looked like Manning was predicting at some point we'd gain some sort of foothold in the game, some sort of control, and that didn't come. So you go down at half-time only 1-0, but by God, it could have been more.
So to answer your question on the first goal, part of it is because of that. What you saw is a frazzled defense, and in terms of Tanaka, we'll speak about him a bit more later, but he was just an orchestra, letting them play, doing everything you can imagine. And why would Tanner, looking around and seeing a player behind him, decide, nah, that's not my guy, I'm going to go over back to my position? Because you are exhausted in the mind. You are constantly being asked questions of dropping short in behind. You become so obsessed with staying in position that logic says, this is someone else's guy because my position's over there and I don't want to get found out and I've got to do my job. It is horrific defending, but it comes from relentless pressure. And it's harsh to highlight Weiner, but yet again, and not for the only time yesterday, he is one of two where his voice is not being commanding enough. At that point, you can see him gesturing, but it's not enough. You can literally see him, what do I do here? The guy in the middle or the guy out wide? Scream, shout, literally Tanner's gone to walkabout. Where have you gone? Why have you left him? It's extremely poor defending, but it comes from 20 minutes of non-stop defending with so many different questions being asked.
Tom, I guess you agree with that inevitability after all that early pressure.
Yeah, of course it was inevitable. It's going to come sooner or later, whether Tanaka scores that or not. But it's terrible defending. Wow. I mean, common sense must prevail for George Tanner there, where whether he's been told by Manning, look, the way they push 5 up, you are taking a man each, you're back 5. So Tanner's just gone, I have to stay with my man. But there has to be a common sense level of, but there's Tanaka behind me. So I'm going to tell Weiner that there's a man behind there, but Weiner's got Vodon. So, what do you do? I do feel Weiner's a bit hard done by a lot of City fans on that goal. He needs to be more vocal, without a shadow of a doubt.
He's not a leader, is he?
He's not a leader.
But where's Dickey at the back?
Well, Dickey's marking the pen spot, which is what you'd want from your middle centre-back. Weiner's got Vodon, and Tanaka comes in the back post. I think Weiner sort of is wanting Roberts behind him, but Roberts has gone to press the ball. And it's just like, what it strikes of just tiredness and fatigue. 20 minutes in, because you've done relentless defending, you've just booted the ball, it's come back.
We've had 8 days to recover.
It's
the
intensity.
Do you know what the worst thing is? That
intensity,
that Tanner actually looks. He knows he's there. It's not like he looks, he misses him somehow and doesn't realize. He actually looks and sees them and makes the conscious effort. I need to get back to my position. It makes no sense at all in that way. And it was a very poor goal to concede, but from a Leeds perspective, it was deserved, because as has been spoken about, and I think it's important that we recognize Tanaka and how good he was yesterday, because the way that we set up defensively is all about that pentagon. It's like, you can come and play here. We will challenge you to do it, and we'll be on you straight away. So teams don't, because they're not usually good enough. So they have to go wide, and this allows us to press. But he was like a little mouse going into the mousetrap, getting a piece of cheese with his hands whenever he wanted. And as soon as he went in, he'd see the space closing and he'd be instructing people to go out. Their attackers would come short as he dropped a little bit deeper. Everything revolved around him, and we had absolutely no answer for him. And he had a field day in that first half yesterday. And to be honest, it was incredible to watch him play. And that's the standard. When it comes to us progressing further, if we do want to go up a league, we're facing that and harder. The way that we defend is not made for those types of players, because every time we come up against one, they go into that little pentagon and say, thank you very much, I'll take my cheese, spread out wide, and we don't know what to do, because we try to press, we leave our defenders open, and it kept happening time again in the first half yesterday.
You said, Tom, about a man picking up a man, but it's a comment I picked up from the commentator. This was on 36 minutes, and talk about biased commentary. I mean, Sky, it was like watching LUTV
terrible,
at the end of the day, and there was no City representative.
Yeah, Stuart Douglas and then the other Leeds.
And, well, Michael Bridges was the other guy in the studio, played for us at the tail end of his career, and was crap. But the commentator talked about when Tanaka headed wide on 36 minutes, zonal marking.
From the corner.
From the court, so zonal marking.
That was from the corner. So what we would do in open play was you had the Leeds front 5, and it was a front 5 that pushed us all the way back, which means that we couldn't play back. So we had to play into Leeds. We had to play towards Leeds' goal, which was the issue because Leeds are so good and they back themselves to win the ball back. And when you've got a team that confident and are so fluid in what they're doing, you are almost playing at an impossible task where you're like, well, we have to play forwards and instinctively, but then they're on you. And you saw yesterday, we get a slide ball with Naki Wells is doing, Rodon just goes, and that's it. There you go. Out you go.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, we go again, we build. And they back themselves. They leave so many players high. I mean, they were really impressive Leeds, but...
And everybody says they'll come straight back down playing like that.
But they will, that's the thing, because they've got such good technical players for this level, but the Premier League is that much higher.
But I would say they're probably better than the 3 that went up last year that are coming down, even though
the way they play is definitely more impressive than any of the 3 teams that went up last year. But you won't be able to play like that in the Premier League.
No.
But I can with Dave's point, Dave, I think, made a really good point about the way we play and that pentagon in midfield. And I've seen it twice this season in sort of away games where we've done it. And it's not worked because the other team had a centre mid of that quality. And that's when Gustavo Hamer came on for Sheffield United and Tanaka yesterday. Because when a centre mid drops in and gets the ball and is quick with their decisions and, doesn't lose it, then you're in trouble. And then he just turns and he runs at you. And then you've got another man running at you. And the issue we had yesterday was we didn't know when to step with Viner or Dickey. And they didn't know when to go because then the space is behind them and they explore. It's an impossible task defending.
Dave, I thought at half-time, well, 1-0 down. We had a little bit of a flurry of activity just before half-time, but I'd written, I think Tom alluded to it just now with Naki Wells got in and didn't get his shot away. But I thought, 1-0 down at half-time. We can't be as bad in the second half. What did you feel at half-time, Dave?
Before you get to half-time, it's important to recognise the stunning save off the floor from Max in the first half. Was it? No, it was, sorry, second half. My mistake is in the second half, so we'll come to it. At half-time, to be honest with you, I was thinking that we'd got away with one slightly to be still in the game. We would be far more pleased than they would. I think we had 3 fouls in the first half. And when we played Luton the game before, they were up, they were at us. And some people can be very dismissive of that type of football, of making another team's life really, really difficult. And if you actually watched Leeds yesterday, many, shall we say, new football fans, not new football fans, football coaches want to play like that. But if you get 2 teams playing like that, the team with the best players is always going to win.
Yeah.
And we went out in a way where we didn't commit fouls. We didn't make their life hard. We always tried to play the same game, but worse. It was like a training exercise. If you want to say men against boys, you could even go that far. To say it was first against fifth, it wasn't close. It was something that we weren't in their faces. We weren't even close. And yes, some of that is because of the quality. But at what point can you really say we made their lives difficult yesterday?
Well, we didn't put a foot in, Dave, did we? I mean, as you say, 3 fouls in the first half, 4 in the second. We were just muscled off of everything. I mean, Knight looks like, Duracells are the longest lasting battery, but it actually looks like Knight is lost his buzz because he wasn't great. He wasn't great at Luton. And last night,
well, to address that, because Tom has always made points about Knight, about his level restrictions, and I've never really understood it until you compare Knight to Tanaka yesterday. They are worlds apart in terms of quality, and Knight is going to be our player of the season, and deservedly so. But we don't have anyone that really controls a tempo like that. Yes, we are a possession team, but who is the player that's patrolling everyone, telling the fullbacks to push on? Some of it is not necessarily the midfield's fault, because even when we did get moments of possession yesterday, where were our wing-backs pushing on, asking questions? Where was our pace in the side? And some of where we've been successful is because we've had energy in midfield. But yesterday was a case of our biggest weaknesses being absolutely exposed. Roberts has no business being a left wing back in a high stakes game, and you definitely don't want Viner with him. They do not work together, and you cannot see them together in the playoffs, and preferably not on Saturday either.
Okay.
Let me just
ask you a question about the midfield, because you look at it. Okay, Williams is out, and we know if he wasn't carrying an injury, he'd be a first pick. But if you look at the midfield of Knight, McGuane, Bird and Earthy, that's going to compete well against most sides. But I thought Bird was off his game last night as well. Earthy looked a little boy lost out there. I thought of that midfield 4, and he didn't play great, but I thought McGuane was the only one that had a decent game, 5.5 out of 10.
They've performed very, very well as a midfield in recent games, but yesterday we are talking a class above and levels. And the reality is with Tanaka in the middle, they went through us at will, because as soon as we tried to close the gap, they said, no problem, we'll go around the outside. For that midfield four, it was almost an impossible situation because they weren't getting the support they needed in other situations. And for Leeds, I would go further. I wouldn't say it was a case of they backed themselves. They knew they had nothing to worry about, because they knew that if Roberts got the ball, he's not going to skin you down the left. If McCory gets the ball, he's probably not going to do the same, because they had a guy there that it was telling in the first half won a header against him. And if McCory is losing that type of header, you are in trouble. So the midfield itself is going to be fighting numerous battles, trying to keep up with the defense, trying to make sure you pick in the holes in between. If you drop back, you have one problem. And sometimes you have to recognize that Leeds were just that good.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the second half. I'll come back to you for the Max O'Leary save. Tom, Max has got his critics looking on social media last night when you did that double save right at the start of the second period. You know, Leeds fans were saying, oh, swap the Bristol goalkeeper, our goalkeeper, any day of the week. I mean, Max showed just what he can do. Good saves in the first half, but that double save at the start of the second was superb, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic double save. You know, really quick.
Almost three, really, wasn't
well,
it?
It was basically, yeah. Max was really good yesterday, but that's Max at his best when he's busy. You know, and for goalkeepers, when you're busy, there's not a time to switch off. And I always find when Max switches off is when Evers comes in, where he's not being busy. Just like in the QPR game, where silly decisions then creep in, or even at Luton, where you know you've not faced bundles of shots, they've been dominant.
That's the first one
and the first one it goes. So when you're busy, you've got your eye on the ball, you've got a bit of the eye of tiger about you, and you go right, okay, and then there's nothing to lose really, because your goalkeeper's not expected to save as many as he did, so there was nothing riding on him. Second half, didn't understand why we kept Wells on. Clear that it wasn't working. Why we thought we could grow. You put Wells in a team so that there's a focal point, there's something to play off, to link up play, to build from. We were never going to do that against Leeds away. So why you wouldn't put Sinclair Armstrong on for a bit of pace? But what you can do with Sinclair Armstrong is you hit it channels and he'll go. Yeah. And he'll chase, and then you pen them back, and then you get right up. Yeah. And then you squeeze.
So you just hit it down.
It's a bit of a respite. You know, you get channel runners and Sinclair Armstrong. What we're doing, going into Wells's feet and then Rodon throwing him off, and then they just attack straight away from the halfway line.
So it's constant, it's relentless back from them.
If Armstrong holds the ball up, maybe wins a foul, maybe, you know, it was clear it was not working with Wells. You know, people were talking about his age. I don't think it's his age. I think it's just his physical capabilities against these big.
Well, you look at him compared to Perot, who you could argue is a similar focal point, but you know, just physically stronger. Dave, getting back to that double save from Max. Max has had his critics, we know that. I thought his distribution was good last night as well. And on the transfer piece of the forum, they were talking about championship players out of contract at the end of the season. And they mentioned Angus Gunn of Norwich City. Now I look at Max and I think Angus Gunn and I think, well, is he any good? You know, I mean, would you see, this is slightly going off piece, but would you see somebody like Angus Gunn being a replacement for Max O'Leary, or competition where somebody has to sit and warm their backside for 46 games unless the other bloke gets in?
I honestly, I cannot say I watched Gunn enough to give you a genuine answer of yes or no there. But in terms of Max himself, the issue is not his height. Yesterday, some of the saves he made were outstanding saves. The one off the floor is like, that's 2 in 2 games that have been world-class saves. The issue with Max is the spectrum, and the spectrum is just too wide, and there's been too many goals cost at the other end. Genuinely, when he has less to do in games, he makes a big error that's noticeable. When he has days like yesterday, you think, this is a high-quality championship keeper. But the problem is the spectrum, and that's why if you do want to move forward and push to be a regular playoff team, or dare I say it, promotion, Max just isn't the goalkeeper for that going forward.
Fair enough. But he did do well at the start of the second half with those two.
Oh, my goodness, it was incredible saves. The issue is not, can Max do amazing things? Because yesterday he was exceptional. But if you look at the body of a work of a season, I don't think he's been good enough.
All right. I mean, Nick Hamblin said on the text feed there, he said, without Max, we could easily have lost by 7, and that's true.
I agree.
It wasn't quite in the same league, but he had a worldie at Villa Park. Well, when Villa were last at this level, where I think he kept everything out that day or kept the scoreline down. Come on to the second goal. It was a goal of class. Talk us through it, Tom. But before that, I mean, it came when Bird, who I said was poor, 4 minutes before he was taken off, we sort of lost possession on the edge of their box, and then bang, bang, it's in the back of our net. Take us through that second goal.
I think that was the goal that I really don't think you could do much about, actually. I think that was a brilliant bit of play from Pivot. I mean, that ball is Premier League quality. That's Harry Kane, the way he plays, is that dropping in. Yeah. When a player's so comfortable at that level, he can do that. And he feels like he's got the freedom to do that. And he just picks up this free space. And it's just this in-swinging ball that takes it away from Dickey. Roberts gets run off. Viner gets run off. And Notto goes in. And it's a good finish from Notto. But it's that freedom and that rotation within Leeds' system that you never know when to step. You never know when to go. But when a player does have time and space like that in a Leeds team, they can produce moments of quality like that. And actually, it was the one goal I thought, fair enough, we couldn't do much about that.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Dave, as well? I mean, that pass, the way it curved behind everybody.
The second goal is the one that goes over the top, right? And he runs through, and Roberts has essentially left him. I think you're being quite generous to the defence in a way, because it starts with Tanaka, and Tanaka takes an age on the ball. It's not like a rapid counter. We have chance to reset, and Roberts sees their winger with behind him essentially, and you've got two men, and you've got Viner, and then Viner kind of cuts inside. Where was the desire? What you see is one player who has a desire to score a goal, and two players that don't have the same matching desire to defend it. Roberts is basically a handbrake wingback. You know, are we asking too much? Are we saying it's okay just to jog back lightly when you know that danger is on? I agree with you. It's a fantastic pass. It's a fantastic through ball. But the defense between Viner and Roberts just have not done well enough there. And it's not like it was a rapid counter. Like I said, it started with losing the ball. There was so much chance to reset, and we just didn't do it. We just looked at the ball. So I don't think it was good enough defending at all.
Yeah. Dave, I'll stick with you on the first subs. You know, we always know it's going to happen within the 60th minute, a couple of minutes either side. Bird and Wells going off, Mehmeti and Armstrong coming on based on their current form. I know Mehmeti is our top goal scorer with 12, but it hardly fills you with confidence, does it really? But then the two that went off weren't exactly cutting the mustard.
When you're trying to review a game like yesterday, and you look at the subs of Leeds quality versus ours that have had good seasons but are off form, the difference is huge. The reality is that we, like you said, we're playing, like Mehmeti might be the top scorer, but he's been off form for some time now. You know, Armstrong has good moments in games, but you're not counting on him to make a strike. And by that moment, everybody knows that game is over. We're not coming back. You know, you could feel it in the stadium. You could feel it in the crowd. I could feel it watching it. It's like, this is done. And yeah, okay, I kind of had to, because of the power cuts yesterday, I had the unbenefit of watching it this morning. But that game was done at 2-0, and you're making the subs really because you're thinking about Preston, and you're thinking about making sure that the players that you need are well rested, and we will need Urfi, we will need Wells, we will need Bird. So it was right to make those subs.
The substitutions, the next lot of subs for us, Tom, came on 74 minutes. McCrory, he's not really. I know he scored a couple of goals this season. He's not lived up to the £2.5 million that we paid for him, the alleged fee, has he? Really?
Maybe not 2.5. No, he's definitely not a player that you should have spent more on than a Jason Knight, which is 1.75. 2.5 is a bit of an overstretch for McCrory, but I think he's grown a lot this year, Ross McCrory. I think he's grown technically. When he first came in, he was a Scottish powerhouse that could run in a straight line, and that was about it. Just I'm going to bulldoze everyone down. But what I've seen when he plays on the right wing back rather than left, because he's got no left foot to play left, but he links up play better than he definitely did when he joined. And I see a progression with him. I think it's one of the players that has improved under Manning. But I think you alluded to it in the first half when he loses the header to Firpo. And that's the type of header that Ross McCrory wins, and he grows into the game and he gets confidence from that. And then you get this sort of puffs out the chest. And it's
so he's a confidence player then.
100%. Ross McCrory is a battering ram, and he'll terrify. When you jump up and you see Ross McCrory, you go,
yeah, because he's big.
But when Firpo attacks it, and you can just see Ross McCrory go, wow.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So him and Earthy go off, and then like
Sam Bell on.
and Leeds quaking in their boots when Sam Bell and Twine come on.
Sam
Jesus.
Bell for his 100th Bristol City appearance.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't think if he wasn't called Bell, he wouldn't have had that many appearances in his career.
I think he's got, but the club don't know what to do with Sam Bell. We tried him.
You nearly said the club don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what to do with Sam Bell because in pre-season we thought he was going to be a 9.
Yeah, well, Tinian said that.
The club go, he's number 9, but he played on as a 9 for the 21s about 4 years ago with Tommy Conway next to him. So he's not a number 9, and now we're putting him wing back. I mean, he's played left wing back, right wing back. He comes on, and it's like, Sam, would just run, please. It's like the only way you could fit Sam Bell into a team is in a 4-3-3 where he's high and wide, and he's not asked to really do that much.
Yeah,
because defensively he's beyond woeful. And Twine, he's been off it for months now, hasn't he, Scott Twine?
Well, he's got a couple of free kicks. I mean, and he's carrying a quad injury.
I think we've got a few players that are struggling. I think Malin alluded to we're having to carry her through
and get them fixed in the summer, which doesn't augur well for. I mean, I still think we'll do it, but it doesn't augur well for the playoffs, does it? When we're playing Sunderland home, then away in the space of 5 days? Is it Friday? Friday and Tuesday we play, assuming we get there.
Can you, in the last game against Preston, put Campering on the bench? If you inject him, is he in a state? I know it's his hamstring, but is he in a state for you to go 15? Is Mark Sykes in a state to go 15 in a Joe Williams type situation? Because I know Max O'Leary is really struggling with his ankle, but we're just injecting that. So, can you put these players on the bench and go, if worse comes to worse, can you give me 10? Because Saturday's now a must win. You wouldn't have had to do that if you'd have.
But in some cases, you're asking players essentially, are you willing to put your career on the line despite the fact you're not 100% fit? And football is a business, and some of those have got 1-year contracts, 18-month contracts. Yeah. And if they do play when they're not 100% and they get an injury, it's not like the club is going to go, oh, thank you for what you did. We're going to keep paying your wages for 3 or 4 years because of that game. If you're 100% fit, of course you play. And I would imagine that a lot of footballers will want to. But Sykes is, from what we've heard, is done for the season. Pring is unlikely to feature. And some injuries, like
I don't think we'll gamble.
I don't think so.
On any of those.
No,
three.
I don't think.
I mean, and Pring, Sykes, and Williams would be starters, wouldn't they?
I think he'll play Williams.
You do?
I think he'll play Williams. Yeah.
Okay, because he views him as the easy.
I think
the least worst option.
It's telling that he's on the bench rather than out the squad.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Dave, their substitutions. They left their first substitutions until the 81st minute, double substitution, Notto and Pirro going off, and a slight difference in quality coming on. Ramazani and Patrick Bamford, who's been around for a very, very long time. And it led to the third goal, really, didn't it? I mean, Bamford was involved, I think, on the halfway line. Take us through the third goal as you saw it. Ramazani with his first touch in the back of the net.
Well, football can be simple, it can be complicated, it can be triangles, it can get you up, it can depress you. The one thing that never changes is the need for pace. And Ramazani, essentially, his desire with pace, he just goes past Roberts to the back post. The delivery is a top-class delivery, but again, Roberts gets beat far too easily. And it's like he is being exposed. And there's been a few times this season where he's been okay in that position. But look at the Cardiff goal, the last-minute equaliser. It was what was Roberts doing in the middle. Time and time again, balls come across the box and he's got no answer. He's not strong enough against the bigger type. He wasn't quick enough to get in the way of the ball. It is a top-class ball, but it could have been better defended. And Ramazani, at the end of the day, he's given him a head start and he's gone round the back as an attacking player should do. It's a goal. I don't think it's particularly great in terms of how we defended it. But this is what happens when you're playing players where they realistically shouldn't be. You get exposed. And when you play a team as good as Leeds, because while we're sounding quite frustrated by yesterday, Leeds were fantastic.
Yeah.
In everything they did, even the subs, the intensity, the press, they're already promoted. How often do you see it? A team's promoted and they drop down a level. If anything, they went hard at us yesterday. It was just Dave,
100% right, because I thought you know, and Ramazani, incidentally, again picking up on what the commentator said, he'd been criticised by his manager for lack of effort, but he certainly shoved those words down his throat. I mean, that goal, Tom, Dave, quite right, it was called out Roberts again, and it does beg the question that in-game management, you know, surely you could have brought on, you're 3-0 down, you know, why not bring on Morrison?
I think he goes. By that point, when it's 2-3, you don't want it to get worse and for it to become a drubbing, and that's it became it. Roberts, he just makes me
annoying,
rage, because there's such a passive nature to everything Roberts does, whether it's attacking, running, intensity, to desire to win a ball at the back post. I mean, I go to the I know Tottenham lost, but there was a few on. I think there was one on the line that I don't know if it was Danso. No, it was Kanate. Sorry, Kanate for Oddbear at the back post, where Kanate takes an absolute whack. But what he does is he gets across and he stops Oddbear from tapping it in at the back post. And it's a desire to win the ball. And Roberts, he knows there's a man behind him, but he goes, "Oh, you know, it's fine. He won't get there. I'll clear the ball. Oh no, he's beaten me to it."
Yeah.
And it's just like, how many times is Roberts just going to be passive and complacent? And I know there's like an element of composure on the ball, but I mean, at Wolves at home in that FA Cup game, he's messing around with it against the Premier League opposition. And these are a Premier League opposition.
Yeah.
These are a Premier League opposition. Yeah. And Roberts just thinks, "Oh, I'll take it down." There was a time yesterday where Earthy pulls away and we've got a counter attack on in the first half. And Roberts looks at him and then turns around and goes, "Oh, all right, I'm going to keep the ball. And then I'm going to try and then there's so many times yesterday that he waits, and then Tanaka or Notto slides across, gets it, and then gets a deflection. He gets their crowd up. It's just like,
and
that's the difference. As Tom said right there, it's a very good point in the first half, because it was actually a confidence building moment for Leeds. You've got Roberts, you've got an opportunity to press forward and push, and he turns back, and it was, oh, so that's what you've got. Right, great. Everybody even more forward, because you've actually got nothing to offer.
Yeah.
And how much of it is his fault in being played out of position is the first question. And some of the blame there goes to Manning. And we will come in the next part, I'm sure, to the formation of the next game, because that's going to be crucial. But I'm sure you want to do the next goal first.
Yeah, let's get going. Well, come on. So I just want to pick up on what Alan Gwinnell said. Can someone answer the question, can we bring in Atkinson if we make the playoff? Categorically, no, we can't. I asked the same question, Dave Fevs, the other day. We cannot bring Atkinson back. End of. All right. Okay. So prior to that third goal, that was in 82 minutes, and we're 2-0 down, 82 minutes. You're thinking, can we see the game out? Okay, they get the third, which is a bit, that's a bit starting to turn into a bit of a rout. Dave, 94 minutes, and they got the fourth, and it's still not quite a rout, but that's the killer goal that brings us level with Coventry on goal difference, and because they've got more goals than us. If they finish on level points, we lose at the weekend, they draw. They're above us, be that in fifth, pushing us to sixth, or whatever. What did you think of that fourth goal? Sloppy?
Rabbit in a headlights type of goal. Yet again, you're looking at Viner and Roberts. You know, what is it ultimately? A ball over the top, a player that has a desire to score goals and it really wants to prove a point. So obviously his manager's words work pretty well. But like, not for the first time. Again, even in this game, Vida does this thing of seeing a danger and pointing it out, and it's like, well, maybe you should go there. You know, maybe it should be you that deals with it. And obviously, Roberts is 10 miles off the pace and jogging back and like la 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 la. And it's a terrible goal to concede, but it's very much a type of goal that a team is done. They're already focused on Preston, and what they don't realize is that goal could seriously damage them in the season, because people think that yesterday was a pure free hit, but it doesn't. At 3-0, it was borderline. At 4-0, all of a sudden it brings that other jeopardy.
Well, at 2-0, well, we can live with that. It's no big deal. Dave, just sticking with you, and I'll come to Tom for the fourth goal. Nobody seems to be talking about Dickey in this defence, where Tanner's, not sticking to his responsibilities. Roberts is all over the place. Viner's all over the place. Dickey, I was trying to look at the numbers, seeing where he was with some of this chasing that's going on. I mean, are you saying Dickey had a half-decent game last night?
I don't think necessarily anybody had a great game yesterday, but I cannot express my annoyance when I see Viner and Roberts play like that, because it was not good. And essentially, you've got that on one side. You've got Tanner that was slightly too passive in his play, shall we say. What hope have you got if you're someone like Dickie? You're relying on certain things around you. I can't say that I saw anything that Dickie did that was like, oh, you're playing badly, because for each goal, I wouldn't necessarily say the blame was with him. But it's like, when everything around you is crumbling, what are you supposed to do? And that was very much a defense struggling yesterday. And he might well be the centerpiece, but by the time it gets to him, it's too late. The damage has been done. You know, if you've got players coming through, flooding from midfield, if you've got players out wide, dropping in from the wing, Dickie's like supposed to be that last line. Make sure you win your headers, not let it come in. I don't necessarily think it's at Dickie's door yesterday, because too many players around him had poor games.
Okay, fair enough. Tom, the fourth goal, that was
that's just terrible, because it brings
Ramazani again.
Like Dave says, it brings in the aspect of goal difference. Just don't concede the fourth. Oh, right, okay. When you concede 2 in 10 minutes, it's like you concede the third, and then there was just like an admittance of, can we just get this over with now? All the body language was terrible. You know, when that third went in and players are just looking at each other, and it's just like, you just need a leader. You need a Joe Williams to just go, right, okay, let's keep, because the players would have known the fourth goal is the, you know, players do keep track of this thing. And I'm sure Manning would have stressed that. So when you concede the fourth, and, you know, the late nature it is, it's just like, I do wonder, though, whether it's a blessing in disguise. And that's simply because we have to win Saturday now. You know, there was an element of, if
could have lost last night,
let's look at other results and work out goal difference. No, you just win Saturday now, and I wonder whether that's the motivation.
Now, can I?
I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Look, this is as we say, we mustn't view everything based on Monday night against Leeds. So, I'm lifting up what we wrote about the Leeds game, and let's take a positive.
Yes,
100% of City fans would have said, when they looked at the fixture list and saw Preston at home on the last day of the season, El Clasico to finish 11th and 12th. It could be we're not playing each other next season because we're in the Premier League. They've got relegated to League One, such as they're tumbling down the table. But Dave, playoffs on the final day of the season, that's a great achievement, whichever way you look at it, even if we fail. But Dave, what are your thoughts?
So if you asked me at the start of the season, and I'm sure many people would say, would you take this position? Of course you'd say yes. If you asked me this at Christmas, would you take this? Of course you say yes. But evaluations change, times change. 2 games ago, we needed 3 points from 3 games. It would not be acceptable, and it would be almost a failure to not make the playoffs from this position. We knew Leeds was there. Luton was the poor performance that really cost us. That was not good enough. I expect this team to make the playoffs. I expect this team to win. It's not a happy-go-lucky, happy to be here, because once you get in the playoffs, it's not job done, put up the statues. You actually have to go and win them then. And it's time that we started to act like a big fish and play like a big fish. And I expect this team to get over the line on Saturday and then focus on the next Everest ahead, because the last 2 games haven't been good enough. And I'll take you back to Manning's words around Christmas. And I slaughtered him for the way he said it, and I think it was clumsy, but I do understand his point, and he's kind of been proven. It's about your home games and taking what you can get away from home. In these last couple of games, we've got nothing. So now it's about that home game. That home game, and he wins it, he can say, this is what I set out to do. I made Ashton Gate a fortress. I took a little nibble at Mill. I got a couple of points here and there. I did what I set out to do. Failure to do that, and he'll be judged on not picking up enough points away from home. But Saturday is a huge game, and yes, absolutely, if you'd asked me at the start of the season, would you take this? Of course you would. But you can't just say it's a successful season if we finish 7th, because there's so many shades of grey. If we finish 7th now, it is not a successful season based on where we were 2 days ago.
You can use a business analogy with this. It's like sort of somebody's a salesman and you say, right, we're going to set you a sales budget of X, and you're overachieving on the sales budget and you're doing a wonderful job. And then in the final quarter, you fall away. You don't hit the sales budget, because you can't say, oh, well, we didn't expect you to hit it anyway. We've got somewhere that we haven't been for 17 years, and we really need to push it over the line. As Dave's just said, Tom, we've gone from, you could get 8-1 prior to yesterday and us not going to the playoffs, not
But
qualifying. That would have been a good bet, wouldn't it?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we're still in control of our own destiny.
Yes.
We're still fifth. We're not. If we win, that's it, confirmed, and that's fifth confirmed. That's the most important thing. We've got ourselves in a position that we're not relying on other teams. But it's not good form to take in. It's not good confidence to take into the biggest game. The performance levels haven't been good enough. The desire and the intensity of the way we played hasn't been good enough. Would you, at the start of the year, have said, right, if you're fifth going into the final day of the season, that must be a fantastic season. And then you look at the context of the season and there's micro points in the season that through the tides and the differences. And the Middlesbrough game was the catalyst for our playoff push. It was Tommy Conway. It was the whole atmosphere. And there was the momentum shift at that point. What you're seeing now is that sort of almost come down of the run of form has ended. You just have to get it over the line. The winning mentality and the confidence going into games has taken a hit. You're conceding more goals than you have previously. You have to get it over the line. You have to be confident at home. But Preston have got it all to play for. And the worst result was Preston losing to Plymouth because they now have to they have to get something from the game. We have to get something from the game. It's two teams that they've lost their last 4 games 2-1.
Who's their manager now, Tom?
Is it Heckingbottom?
Oh, Heckingbottom, that's right. Yeah,
and it's also it's not it's not black and white. Think about the song 12th place again, the 12th place derby. Why do we go into seasons? Yeah, you can feel a bit iffy and not so great about where we are, etc., etc. But I don't know about you guys, but every season I'm thinking, right, this season's 6th. I want 6th. I would like 6th. And I spend the whole season looking at how many points we are off of 6th place. That is always the target. And just because you get there doesn't make it some miracle, because by that we'd be talking 11th and 10th place is not good enough and 6th is working miracles. No, we are where I expect us as a club to be challenging more often than we don't. I don't expect playoffs every year. That's unrealistic. But at least challenging for it. And this has been a momentum season. You get different types. You get like consistency with losses along the way. And you get our version where we've had an exceptional run of form since February. And now it's about getting over that line. Yeah. And I have a question for both of you to take it forward to Preston. Would you change formation now? Would you change, bearing in mind what you're looking at, would you go to a 4? And the reason I say it is because the options available, you could put McCory on one side, Tanner is right back, and you have solutions. If you keep going this way, you're going to have somebody in a position where they're out of position, whether it's you, whether it's Viner, whether it's Roberts. Is it worth it? Is it still the best formation going into the most important game in 17 years?
I'll take the answer first. It's not what we think, it's what Manning thinks, and he seems set on it. And it's not just about Preston. It's what happens against Sunderland, home at Ashton Gate on the Friday and away at the Stadium of Light on the Tuesday. I know Wembley's a one-off game, so anything can happen, but we've won 2 matches away from home in 5 months. And if we go to Sunderland with anything less than 2-0, we might as well forget the playoffs now, because it's just prolonging the inevitable disappointment. Tom, what do you think?
I think it's a good question, would you? But for me, no. I think that there's like a familiarity about the way we play now. Players offensively at home, we've looked very good in this shape. I think we're getting sussed out a little bit with it now. I think teams are cottoning on a little bit to it. Would you change though in the biggest game of the last 17 years? It's a big gamble if you do, and you're asking then a different style of play. You're asking different roles from responsibilities from different players than what they've done the last 3 months leading up to it.
Okay, so good answer. Second question: would you play Morrison? Because it's screaming for him. It's screaming to make the team as a back 3 or back 5 more comfortable. Morrison is the left wing back. Would you put him in this big a game? All of a sudden, everything else gets ticked.
I would, and I think Tom would, wouldn't you, Tom? Look at how crap Roberts.
He's been terrible. But would you play a guy that's played 45 minutes of football all season in your biggest game? I mean,
it's Preston.
It is Preston, but Preston have got it all to play for. So it's like, would you? This is Manning's fault this year with this short-termism. He's not better than Morrison at all. So in the biggest game, you are shoeboxed into playing Roberts, I think, and I think he will play Roberts. because he's not given Morrison the ample minutes when he should have. When you're up in games, you bring Morrison on. Even if you're losing games, you get Morrison used to the intensity of men's football. You're asking because the crowd will be, I imagine, intense on Saturday. There's a lot to play for. The pressure, you're asking an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, who must have under 90 minutes in his professional career on a men's football pitch to start that game is immense. So I don't think Manning will take that risk. Would I do it? I think he can't be worse than Roberts. I would start Morrison, but Manning, I'm categorically saying.
But so what we're saying is, come what may, unless Pring gets fit, right?
Well,
Roberts, we're going into the playoffs and potentially the
unless he plays McCrory left wing back, which I could see him doing, and then you have a back. Your back three is, but I think maybe you put Hirakawa right wing back and McCrory left wing back. That might be an option that he goes for, but I would love Morrison to play. He should have been better than he's not been because we've done this really short-term approach. But whether he goes McCrory and then you have a back three of Viner, Dickey, Tanner, you right wing back. That's
he's been a disappointment, hasn't he? I mean, look, we know this recruitment in the summer. If you look at Fally, Armstrong.
Did you say you've been a disappointment?
Yeah, I think you've been a disappointment. Yeah,
I disagree with you completely, and the reason is because we've changed formation. It's not his fault that his best position has just been eradicated. At the beginning of the season, there were a lot of promising signs, and he's essentially being asked to play positions that aren't natural to him. He is not a wing back. He's not a number 10. So, yeah, you're right. His performances haven't been absolutely fantastic. But to give you an example, against Sunderland, yes, it was against 10 men. But once you put him in a position where he's being asked to attack, he was exceptional. The issue is too often he's being asked to play in a wing back position, and it's just not for him. And that's the issue with you. I don't think it's his fault this season. And I'm surprised that we were so quick to sign him if we're going to commit to this formation going forward.
That's the biggest thing. We signed you for a 4-2-3-1 with you being our right winger to replace Mark Sykes. And we've changed to a 5 at the back, and you're now asking a guy that's never played wing back in his life to do a job defensively. And that was never his role. His role was to be brought in and to be sort of the maverick on the other side, the sort of player that could produce something from nothing. You get the ball to him, and you don't know he will take it wide. He'll attack players like in Oxford. We've coached it out of him, which I'm very disappointed about. But you've seen glimpses of it. I think what was it, Sunderland he came on, or was it West Brom? And he goes high and wide, and he does something. And there's moments there with you that you go, okay, hope's not lost. It's not like, he's not a wing back, like you say. But then questions have to be asked of recruitment again, because you're recruiting in a formation, and then you're leaving that formation 2-3 months into the system and radically changing, just hoping something clicks. And it's only been since Boxing Day that this 5 at the back has clicked, because we've had different variations of it in various capacities. But this sort of 3-4-2-1, if you call it that, with 2 wide 10s, doesn't get the best out of you. But it does get the best out of Jason Knight, and it gets the best out of Bird. So then you've got to sum up. I also don't think it gets the best out of Scott Twine. Scott Twine is a central 10 in a 4-2-3-1, but he's not a wide 10 at all.
No.
So
do you know what I think that the board, or those in charge of transfer, should I say, need us to make the playoffs more than anybody else, because Manning, by all reasonable standards, has done a good job this season. The players, essentially, we are in our highest position for a number of years. They both end this in credit. If we fall short, essentially, we'll be able to say it's because of a small squad. That was a choice. And injuries affecting that squad in the places that anybody who watches football saying, you've got wing backs, and guess what? They get injured. It is really not a surprise. And that's never mind the strikers. And I cannot tell you how unacceptable it is when people say, oh, Sykes is injured. It's so unlucky. Well, yeah, he's a wing back. It happens. Pring, who's got a slight record of this thing. None of this is shocking. We were just unprepared for it. And in that respect, Manning is extremely unlucky, because he deserved more investment.
Yeah.
From what he's done afterwards.
But then he didn't have that investment in January because he overspent in the tail end of the August window.
The club accidentally must have signed about 3 players, apparently, according to that statement, where we've gone in.
Now, you could argue that we spent too much money, and actually Manning got his man in Twine, and we could have spent that on wing back. So I understand that argument as well. But if you take it forward to January, that squad was screaming for investment. So if you look on both sides of it, in summer, we spent on 2 strikers that aren't near the side and on Twine, who's not currently starting. Yeah. And then in January, just when we needed it, we said, nah, we're going to hold fire. And if we don't make it, that will be why.
Well, and I think letting those players go in January, Naismith and Atkinson, that was the bad bit, because you could say we're not going to sign anybody, but actually he shifted out 2 players, and on the wages alone saved, you could have bought somebody in, because he was made. If he was made to reduce the wage bill in January, then that's criminal. In my view,
I think Atkinson was the biggest loss, because without a shadow of a doubt, Atkinson would be starting right now and would have started the last few weeks at left centre back over Zach.
And he's done all right since he came back from that injury he picked up. Well, he got injured in February,
then he comes back. But Atkinson would, without a shadow of a doubt, be starting left centre back in a back 3 right now.
And your back 3 would be Viner, Dickie, Atkinson.
Yeah,
and who would be right wing back?
McCrory.
And left wing back.
Well,
there you go. Whatever happened.
Pringlen got injured, but we've known that Roberts isn't good enough for since the start of the season. You know, we had him in a back 3 last year as a left centre back. He's not a left wing back, but what he had last year was an informed Campering and informed Rob Dickie that allowed Hayden Roberts to be that sort of composure, bringing the ball forward, lack of defensive responsibility that he now has, because Rob Dickie hasn't had a successful, well, he's had a good season, but he's not had as good a season. Campering struggled with injuries, so he's been forced to shift over to left wing back where he's not good enough.
No, but that's what I mean. But you have cover for each position. So if Cam is your preferred left wing back, then Morrison, as a youngster, is the backup.
Well, you'd think that, but he's not.
But we're putting. Yeah, all right.
Morrison.
Look, let's.
Can I just do my prediction of what the team is going to be? I think he'll play Roberts at left centre back, Viner at right centre back, McCrory as left wing back, and Tanner as right wing back. And we'll try to harry them, impress them using the ball of 4. And the goal will be to not give them space to breathe and try to get at teams at home like we've done, and relying on the crowd and the atmosphere to get over the line, and ideally get a couple of early goals in the first half before the nerves set in. I don't think Saturday is going to be fun at all. I think it's going to be tight, it's going to be edgy, but I do think we'll get over the line.
All right, well, that's very confident.
Do you?
That's very confident.
Yeah, no.
Look, let's look at the league table. I mean, look, Coventry are home to Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough, the thing they've got in their favour is a goal difference. If Coventry, let's say Middlesbrough win that, they go on 67, same as us, but above us, because they've got a vastly superior goal difference. Millwall and Blackburn have got 2 tough away fixtures at Sheffield United and Burnley. I'm not sure where are Millwall?
Millwall away to Burnley.
Millwall away to Burnley. I could see, and if they draw, which would be good results, that's not good enough for either of them. But I could see one of Millwall and Blackburn causing a bit of a shock. And it's highly feasible that Middlesbrough and one of Blackburn or Millwall could take over from Bristol City and Coventry, current occupiers of 5th and 6th place, because Coventry's form, Frank Lampard's Coventry, that's gone through the floor a bit as well.
David, it's Blackburn coming back to haunt you, because a couple of weeks ago you said, oh, Blackburn, don't worry about them. Now they're knocking on the door like, are you sure? I personally, I think of all the teams to be worried about, it is Blackburn, because I've heard Sheffield United.
Right, Dave, you're right. If Blackburn get a draw on Saturday, they go on to 68 points, and if we get a draw against Preston, we're on.
If Blackburn win, you mean?
Above us, because they've got a +1 goal difference.
If Coventry win or draw, they would go above us as well.
Yeah.
So that's the goal difference from conceding the 4th yesterday.
On the one hand, there is a discussion like, if we lose against Preston, do you think we get in?
No.
Who's getting in then? If say the worst case scenario happens and we lose, which 2 teams do you think are getting in the playoffs?
I think I can't see Coventry losing to Borough, so I think Coventry will jump us, and I think Blackburn will jump us, because they're going to a Sheffield United team that I wonder whether they'll rest players because they've got nothing to play for. Sheffield United, Blackburn have it all to play for, so I can see Blackburn getting the results. If we lose, I could see us finishing 7th. I think Millwall will lose at Burnley, because Burnley will want to beat Leeds for the title. So they've still got it to play for. I mean, it's madness. It's 2 teams can finish on 100 points and only one can win the title. But I think we have to get a draw at least to get into the playoffs.
I'm actually going to say I think we could fail and we still might do it. by other results. I think, because that's just typical Bristol City to do that. Like they've damaged our expectations with that. It's not a drubbing, damaged the expectations with that result last night, and we might lose 1-0. The other teams could falter because everybody's faltering. And if we finish the season on 67 points, I don't think that's beaten our best total since we've been back in the championship the last 10 seasons. Because I think we get to 69 one season. And not
what in the 17,
18, 18, 19.
I think
I'll stand corrected on that.
67 points is really low for
It's ridiculous
for a playoff
to go
team. Really low.
Yeah.
In 2018, we finished 11th on 67 points, which is the points we've got now. And in 2018-19, we finished 8th on 70 points.
There we go. So we've got to win to even equal our best.
But the thing is, I think 17, 18 points away from Hull. Burnley and Leeds are 30 points.
30, I know.
At the top of the table. I mean, they're just a world of their own.
So, a starting question for me: who would be your front three? Shall we say? Would you continue to go with the Earthy Bird Wells combo, or would you freshen things up in a different way?
No, I think the team picks itself. Really,
definitely offensively. You've got an argument at who's playing at the back. I wonder whether
he might start Williams ahead of McGuane.
I do think he'll start Williams ahead of McGuane. But
yeah,
who you put left wing back is the big one.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I think we're done for today. Dave, we will do it on Sunday morning, all right, because your contribution today has always been invaluable. The other Tubby, Mark, he's a bit poorly at the moment, so get well soon, Mark. And Tom, you or your dad will probably come along and join me.
If we get playoffs, I imagine I'll be out the night before.
Oh, Tom will be out the night. So Tom won't be. Tom won't be. That's the advantage. I got a choice of, do I have no Tom, you'd be out on the Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
So you won't. Tom won't be with us on Sunday, but somebody will. We got a few people lurking in the background. So we look forward to Preston.
Just to say, I hope to see everybody on Sunday morning with a big hangover. This is my hope.
Yeah, well, we hope so as well. But everybody who's, if you're watching it live, about 300, almost 280 people. So hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. And as I say, we'll do the Preston game. That's now confirmed. We'll do that at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. At the very least, Dave, it'll be you and me. Yeah. And,
Perfect.
everybody have a good rest of the week. All the best, everybody.